Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. Always good to be together with a group and get feedback and hear some wonderful Torah. So let's just jump right in and say hello to Rabbi Schwartz. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. So good to be with you again. I'm going to turn the class over to you, sir.
Hello, everybody, and glad to be back. Now, for tonight, I have just recently introduced the shofar blowing that's going to happen on Rosh Hashanah. So I wanted to talk about the spirit of the times, and we went through 3 videos about apologizing, doing tshuva, repenting, and so on, with some interesting insights and a novel approach. And now I want to get back to the original program. Now, the original program was I was doing Shulchan Baruch, the table of blessings, but that was and that itself was an interruption in something else. And we finished the early morning things and a lot of stuff there. We got up to tzitzis. I think we're up to getting into wearing tzitzis, the fringes on the garment, which I was going to do, but then that's not something that's going to be practiced. It's an idea. So I want to park that for a second, and I want to go back to an earlier, well, something that I started covering in my book, which is kind of how we started, and that is the list of Noahide instructions, this list of instructions from the 613, which are called the commandments to the Jewish people, of which most of we can't do today. More than half pertain to the Kohens, to the priests working in the temple, and so there's about 270 to 350, somewhere in that area, that pertain to today, and different counts by different people. And among those, I count around 200, 199 that pertain to Noahides, and as some of them I think are included. That they're sort of commanded, instructed that this is what you should do, and some of them will be related and of the same spirit, but may be an option that you don't have to go this far, but it's open to you and it makes sense to follow along. So I've got creating charts of each one and its derivatives and options, associated options. And so I wanted to start with that. I don't know if I presented it to you before. I had a chart, but not this one. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here now. And it's going to be here. Do you see it on the screen? You don't see it on the screen. Okay. Let's see. Share. Okay. How's this? Is there a chart on the screen? Okay. All right. So now what this chart is there's be 23 lines in this chart, and this is just the sequence over on the left side. This second column, CC, stands for Chofetz Chaim. When I first constructed these charts, I wanted to keep track of the authorities that identify this. There is some disputes, some disagreements as to which ones fit into the list of 613, and therefore which ones will fit into the list we want. Rambam, there were a number of authorities that concocted lists in using different categorizations to group them. So CC refers to Chofetz Chaim, who's a later day sage. He died in 1930 or so, and was a very famous man. And he wrote, one of the last things he wrote, quite a few books, but one of the last things he wrote was the Book of Concise Mitzvot, in its English title, wherein he listed first the positives and then the negatives that are still applicable today. And he had 271 total, and I've talked about those, and I understand some of them. I don't understand why he included them, and some he obviously omitted because he wasn't in Israel and couldn't get there, so they didn't pertain to him or to the people he was writing. So that's one, and I wanted to be able to relate that back and forth because that list was really the model for this, finding out which ones might pertain to Noahides. Then there's the chinuch, which is ch. We use ch in English letters to stand for the guttural sound of the ch at the back of the throat. Chinuch was the educator, and he listed. He's good to know for one thing, because he listed the mitzvahs in the order they appear in the Torah, which is not any logical order that you can find, but it is useful because you can go back and find the verse easily and follow how it developed. And also, he's also interesting in that he is one of the very few that would make it regularly comment on what you learned from the mitzvah, what was the intention or the takeaway lesson from the mitzvah. Most do not really go there because we don't know. We can't say this is why God said to do this. That's a dangerous ground to break because you don't know the mind of the infinite, and if you understand it, you may say, well, it doesn't apply here. But if God said do this, you know, it can apply even when you think it doesn't. So we don't like to. Most people don't like to say this is the reason we have the mitzvah. And so we say in his understandings or his explanations are that this is what you can learn from this mitzvah. Since God told us to do this, you can see that he wants such and such. But you can't say that's the whole reason. So that's another good guy to know. The Rambam I could have put down Rambam, but it's much harder to reference him because it's not just a number. By the way, in this guy, the Chofetz Chaim, there may be two guys with the same number because you have to look and see this is a negative. Don't do something. So that's number 35 in the negatives. Here, return what you took. That's a positive. So it's number 68 in the positives. And he did it like that in two separate lists. Rambam, it would be which book is it in, and then which section in the book, and then which chapter does he discuss it, and what paragraph does he discuss it. So there's quite a few levels you have to identify before you can find the source. So it's not all that quick a lookup. Like I say, we have three, and one of the first things, and I start with this particularly because it's in this group that Rambam, who is really the authority or the main authority to go to for describing Noahides and the relationship and so on, and he mentions very quickly that this one of the seven, do not rob, certainly encompasses quite a few others of the 613. He names them, and so that's what I've done here, and then gone on from there. So, and what I'm interested in doing here is see if we can identify why would we have so many instructions of the same nature in the Torah? Why would the Torah feel it necessary to give us the same idea or the same concept at so many different levels? So, having said that, the first one from Leviticus 19:13. Leviticus 19 is a treasure mine of mitzvahs, and there it says, "Do not rob." And robbing means someone owns it and you take it against their will. You just come and take it against their will. So if it has to be that somebody owns it, because if nobody owns it, if somebody was intending to get that and you beat them to it, that's not robbing. They have to be already the owner, have rightful ownership, and then you're taking it against their will, so that's robbing. So the next one is, and everybody understands that. So the next one is do not steal. And the question is, what do you need to do? What is this? What's this different from do not rob? And now I like to ask questions and try and get answers. And we got a few people here. Dan, you want to take a stab at why you need an extra statement not to steal?
Well, I think a steal just means something that's not your own.
Well,
Whereas Rob, you've clarified someone owns it. Whereas do not steal could be personal. If you don't own it, don't take it.
yeah, but this is also you don't own it. In other words, this someone
Yes,
who owns it
no,
is
but
not you.
somebody specifically owns it.
Right.
Not taking what is something that is not yours. Uh,
Well,
it highlights the integrity to clarify what something is and is it owned by somebody like I found a couple of weeks ago I found $100 laying on the grass where I do my patrols and
okay. Good. Wonderful example. Very good.
yeah, it was five legitimate 20s that were tightly together. Looks like they were folded over once, put in somebody's shorts front pocket, and it was, there's three pubs on the grounds that I patrol, and so somebody probably fell over and it dumped out of their pocket. But I
Right.
looked at it and I could clearly call it Hefker because there was nothing identifying. If it was, yeah,
Ownerless.
it was ownerless. If it
Right.
if it was in a wallet or something where there was ID, right,
Right.
that I could validate,
Right.
then to keep the funds would be stealing, and
Uh-huh.
because it was legitimately ownerless, floating by itself. And we have bank machines all over the resort. The point being that somebody obviously pulled funds out of the bank machine because they were crisp 20s and it just there they were laid out and folded close together, kind of fanned out on the grass, blended in the grass, but it's right by a short path I patrol around, and I noticed it early in the morning, and it was a Saturday morning after a Friday night where tons of partying on the beach, and
Right.
if there was any identifying marker,
Yeah.
you know then it could be stealing if I kept it. But do not rob. It could fall under robbery if I know somebody owns it. But do not steal puts the onus, I think, a little further on ourselves to investigate rather than rob. You clearly know somebody owns it and you take it against their will, as you mentioned, whereas stealing means their will isn't brought into the it's a question, a difference between theft and burglary. A burglar goes in unannounced, whereas somebody who's mugging somebody is literally robbing them face to face, and
Right.
it's
Right.
a different act. So I hope
Right.
that is
Yes.
clear.
Okay. So you're treading on other things. So, I'm going to disagree with what you said about that. You're not sure somebody owns it. I don't think that's the issue. We're going to get to that later when you see because there's the mitzvahs that deal with finding something lost. But over here, so the thing is, do they know who you are, or do they not know? So if I just lower this mask here, here the difference is you're taking it without their knowledge. When you take it against their will, they know you're taking it, right? And you can see that they don't want to give it to you, but you're taking it anyways. Stealing, you take it without their knowledge. They don't know who you are. I mean, they find out they lost it, but they didn't see you do it, and so that's a different level. Some say stealing is worse because you think nobody's looking. God's looking. God knows what you did. So that's a problem right there. But you see, it's like two different acts. You're not you're overpowering somebody. They weren't looking, and you slipped it into your pocket or something like that. So it's two different. I might think if I only had the one statement, I might think that either one. If I only had either one of these, I might think the other one might be okay, because it's like I shouldn't take it that he doesn't want it. So he knows who I am. I'm just stronger than him. Maybe that's not so bad. He can come and get it some other time, whatever. Probably I would say that it's they're both no good, but they have different um, dimensions to them. So that's why you need both statements. And then whatever it was, the third statement you need, because that's an instruction. Well, now you could ask, why do you need return what you took? I mean, if you're not supposed to do this, so then obviously if you did it and we find out, we're certainly going to make you give it back. And we want you to realize you should give it back. So why did the Torah have to say return what you took? And it kind of goes with the first two, but I might argue that two things. One is that when the Torah, the whole idea of a positive and negative, I've explained that sometimes you have positives and negatives. It's exactly the same thing, but just one says it in a positive way, and one says it in a negative way. So I interpret that. Well, Ramban, Nachmanides, he said it's a statement of, when it's positive, it's a statement of loving God, and when it's a negative, it's a statement of fearing God. So there's these two ideas. You have to want to do the right thing and be afraid of doing the wrong thing, that kind of thing. I put a little different spin on it, and I say that the Torah is telling you when it's don't do this because it's harmful. They don't want you to, don't hurt yourself. Don't put yourself into this situation. It's going to just destroy your character or whatever. It's really harmful to you. And however, when I tell you to do something positive, that's a benefit you'll get. You'll get a benefit. Now, sometimes both are true, and so you'll have both, because don't do this, it's harmful. But if you've done it, then repair it this way, so at least you can start climbing out. So that might be a way to look at it. The other thing is to that's one way of explaining why you need it. The other way to look at it is that whenever, as I said in another video, whenever you have a mitzvah, when you have an instruction from Hashem to do something, along with that mitzvah comes obviously the power to do it, the ability to do it. If God's asking you to do something, He's going to give you the power to do it. And so sometimes it's very difficult to recover from an error, from even a willful error or a mistaking error or whatever. It's hard to say I'm sorry, as we discussed last time. So this gives you the power to recover from that, to make amends, to change a leaf, to become somebody different. If without that mitzvah, you might not have the power. So that's another reason for the extra statement. So, okay. So that explains why we need those three. Now, in those three, the Rambam, I don't remember now if he mentions these, but certainly they would seem to follow that if you're in business, we have a new instruction: make your measures correct. There's just the positive, and do not use false measures. So you're in business, and of course, let's say, the way to cheat this is that you have a pound weight, and so when you buy something from the supplier, you're using a heavy weight. It's got a little more lead dug into it, so it's a little heavier than a pound. So you're getting a little extra measure of the goods you're buying as you weigh it out. But then when you sell it, you're using another counterweight which has been salted. So you're shortchanging the guy. So if you're receiving an extra ounce or two and then letting go a little, less an ounce or two, so you're spread of up to 4 ounces on every deal. So that helps your profit margin, right? So that's the way to do it. Torah says don't do that. That's like stealing, obviously. But now you need this statement. Why do you need this statement? It's stealing. You're stealing from the guy. So what makes this different? Rabbi, Randy, Ronald, rather. Any ideas? Grace? Anybody want to chime in?
Sorry, Rabbi.
Do you want to explain a difference here? Why is this different from just stealing when you're using false measures?
Because you're deliberately taking an advantage in your favor.
Well, you're doing it without their knowledge. They don't know your measures are false.
Okay, so but we said without their knowledge, that's stealing. We got that covered. You're taking it against their will. They don't want to, pay extra. So why do we need this extra thing when we've already got it covered like that? So I suggest that, well, first of all, the positive puts you be on guard not to cheat, take extra measures. In other words, talking about measures, make sure, you got to check it out, make sure it's still accurate and so on. But also, an unfair exchange is not robbery, because what you did was the guy came in, he gave you the money. You didn't take his money from him. He knows he's giving you money. He's looking at the prices. Yeah, that's what I want. So you might say, well, what did I do wrong? He asked for it and I gave it to him. That's the price. So maybe I can say that, okay, he could have got it cheaper somewhere else, or somebody else was weighing it a little better in his favor. But he gave me the money and I gave him what he wanted. I didn't take something that he didn't know about. It was all above board. So you might have that excuse. Right. So that's why you need these extra statements to say, no, because even though he knew, but it was under a mistaken impression. In other words, you're cheating his knowledge. It's not, he saw what he got, and he seemed to be happy with it, but it's because he thought that it was a little more, right? Now we have a third one in this group. We had 3 in the first group. I like 3s. So here's in the second group, you have another 3. Do not retain false measures. Now, not using them. Let's say you have one that's, too heavy or too light, and you just keep it down in the basement. So you're not allowed to do that. That's another instruction. Don't even keep it in your possession. Well, why not? I'm not using it. I'm not cheating anybody. So the answer here is, don't invite mistakes. Someday you'll forget what it was, or somebody else won't realize what it is. They'll come and use it. It's marked a pound, and they don't realize that it's things. So yeah, don't keep things that invite fraud in your possession. Now that, when you start thinking about that, you can extrapolate from there to a whole bunch of scenarios where people might easily fall into a fraudulent practice inadvertently, because they didn't take care of how they were presenting themselves or whatever else. So that would explain why you need those other 3 statements, all of the same ilk. They're all of the same rap sheet of taking money, taking somebody else's possessions unfairly or illegally. And probably the country has a law against that. This is what we do. They have inspectors that'll go around inspecting scales and so on, just for this reason, because it's built into the society. Society's become aware that this is not healthy, and they make up their own laws too, that following the Torah laws. So that's a good thing. And you can have it in mind when you are, if there's a government inspector coming and you invite them in and say, yes, please check the scale, make sure I'm right. You want to follow the Torah law. It's not like, they're just bothering me. You want to make sure that you're being 100% fair. And if you're a smart businessman, you'll, maybe it's a similar, they have health certificates. I don't know about you guys in Toronto. There's health certificates when you go to a restaurant. So they have a label on the door that it's been inspected and passed. Yeah, what level are they? Are they just okay or excellent, and so on? So people should know. So you should invite these guys in and say, yes, please inspect my premises and tell the people that I'm keeping a healthy establishment, and they can trust the food and so on. It's important. And the people are relying on you to do that. So that's another way of here. It's not a measure. By the way, there's the Torah has actually several statements of this kind because it identifies different kinds of measures. So one statement says, that's why I've got a few here, two sentences, because you're not allowed to have either a dry measure or a liquid measure or a length, a ruler measuring the length of something. All these things have to be checked out to make sure they're accurate measurements. So the same thing with, if you're saying that this is this kind of food or that kind of food or this kind of calorie content, all these things, you're not allowed to mislead the public. You might not think I'm not robbing them, I'm not stealing or something, but here you see it's a matter of misleading their awareness. And that's robbing, that's cheating. That's so
Rabbi,
that's all.
I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld at all, but do you remember they had a couple episodes around a frozen yogurt?
Right.
And they were all eating the frozen yogurt because it was sugarless, and then they found out they were all putting on weight, and turned out they ended up getting inspected, and it wasn't sugarless, and cholesterol was shooting through the roof, and
And they weren't angry at the yogurt guy. They were angry at the inspector who brought it to their attention, right? So what would you come in for? We were all enjoying ourselves. That's what made it so funny, because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was supposed to be fat free, and and it was loaded apparently, and then it was flavorless after they actually removed the fat.
Right. So nobody liked that. So exactly. But you have to be honest. And so anybody stealing, fooling people, that's the same idea as using false measures. So all those instances were quite a widespread net that the Torah creates with that. It was absolutely necessary, because you might say that that's not stealing, that's not robbing, but it is. Okay. So now we have two more along the same lines, and there's some interesting things here. Now, this next one, do not overcharge. So you might think that this sort of falls in to the same thing. So, in other words, I gave the right measure. I gave him the pound that he asked. My weights are accurate, but everybody else is charging $1 a pound, and I charged them $1.25. So he paid me. I asked him. I said it's $1.25, and he may not be aware that other people are charging $1, or he may. I don't care. I don't know what he knows, but that's what I want. So he paid me. So maybe I'm okay. So the Torah says, no, you're not okay. But there's a much detail here. First of all, this only applies when the price is stable. So it has to be a staple, and there's a stable price to that staple. So if you talk about wheat or corn or what are they, hogsheads or whatever they sell on the commodities market, that's where the commodities market is, where they establish a regular price. And now if somebody's coming, so today it's very sophisticated. We've got electronic reports and so on, and people speculate: is it going up? Is it going down? But at least at a certain place, when you come in and you say, I'm going to buy it at this price, you want to know that you're paying the current price. And you don't want to have to pay, the price, the higher price there was yesterday, or the price where it's going tomorrow. You want to pay what is the price today? And so they have a whole commodities market to establish this. Well, in those days, it was the marketplace, and most things were staples. They didn't have the manufactured goods we have today, but they did have manufactured goods. So let's say if you're buying a piece of jewelry, that's not stable. Every piece of jewelry is unique. So you can't say that there's a stable price. So if I sell a piece of jewelry and I wanted $1,000, somebody else would have sold for $700. Well, that's go to him. It's not like I want $1,000. I'm showing you what it is. It's my workmanship, and I want $1,000 for my price. He can work lower. That's up to him. His work may not be as good as mine. It's things like that. Like, you can't start discriminating there. So the interesting thing about do not overcharge is only when the prices are stable, And then, even then, this is a very interesting concept in the Torah, anyways, is that it's 1/7. 1/7 if you charged more or paid more than a seventh of what the stable price was, then you have recourse. If it's less than a seventh, it was considered that nobody cared, or at least I think you could go back and say, hey, look, you charged me a little too much. So the sale stands, and the sale stands, and no, it goes like this. It goes, if it's less than a seventh, nobody cares. It's not relevant. It's not a material, and so the sale stands, and there's no returns. If it's 1/7, then the guy that paid too much or got too little can insist that the difference be made up. He says, listen, this should have been not $1, it should have been $1.07. So give me another 7 cents, whatever, like that. And he's got a right to ask for that, and you've got a duty to pay it to him, and that's that. If it was more than a seventh, then but the sale stands in that case. If it was more than a seventh, he has a right to undo the sale. So there's still tables. One is the sale stands, the deal is done, forget about it. The next one is the sale stands, but you have to compensate. You have to make up the difference. And the third thing is the sale does not stand. So give back the money, give back the product, start again. What are you gonna do now? You want to pay more? Pay more. If you want to, he's going to lower the price, whatever it is. But the sale is undone. Now, what's so fascinating about this is that this 1/7, how's it calculated? Well, it could be that the going price was 7, and he only gave you 6. That's 1/7. Or it could be that the going price was 6, and you paid 7. That's also 1/7. So it's you look at it from both sides. It's not really one number. It's really a range. And when I learned this, I was just gobsmacked that that hardly makes sense. It's there's such a wide range there, and what I decided was that we're really talking about a person's dignity. That if they feel that they were cheated this much, then they're hurt and they want to get rectified. But if it's there's variations, heck with it, So the Torah's, the God's assessment was that at this level 1/7, either way it goes, people are going to be able to ignore it. They say, that's life. But when on the 7th, then they say, no, we got to make amends. And after that, it's like, no, do the whole thing. So it's a very interesting insight from the Torah into human nature that, and this is how we are. We're willing to forget about it, and sometimes we're not willing to forget about it. And it's interesting where the Torah set that parameter. Okay, so and so that's why
Rabbi, I worked for a lot of years in the auto industry, sales and management, and sometimes there was what the market would bear, especially on used vehicles. But occasionally a new product would come out that was in such high demand that people were trying to find ways to oversell. But here in Canada, I mean, we've got price fixing laws. You're not allowed to fix prices. Manufacturers were not allowed to fix prices. People wanted to negotiate. It just opened up a whole plethora of the ethics behind doing honest and legitimate business. And I was fortunate enough to finish top 50 in our country 3 years in a row with one manufacturer. And that was all built on reputational build, and gaining repeat business and referral business. And, it becomes very obvious if somebody feels gouged, if they find out you made a big profit of them, you'd lose them as a client. And so you treated people fair.
And lose all the friends and everybody they know.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Exactly. 100%. And so,
it's a very dynamic area, what to charge, how to charge it, when is it right, when is it not right, when's it when will people not care? You know,
Yeah,
like
people sniff out when you're chasing profits for sure.
right, right,
You know, we see it today. You know, even with the like I hate to say it, the whole COVID scenario made, you know, billions for the pharmaceutical companies, right?
right.
Yeah, so sad, but
Okay, but the Torah would say that's okay. Torah would say, look, they said this is the price. So there was no stable. You can't say there was an established price. So they invented something, and they said we want to get paid this.
yeah,
and
but an engineered market for harm that, you know, is a different story. I mean, like in the auto industry, some of the distasteful things since in my generation is the creation of the specialty tool. If you go back into the 50s, 60s, 70s, the cars that lasted long because the average Joe could fix it, could work on it.
Right.
So then they engineer a specialty tool, and
Right.
you find all that the end result is, you know, they have engineered demand built right in, and longevity. Whereas, you know, you go back 100 years ago, everybody bought a cast iron frying pan because it would last you your lifetime, right? And
Right.
you know,
But it took forever to heat up. So there's a demand. There was a demand for something that heats up faster. But there's pros and cons. You know, this is the marketplace. So you're never going to sell something that's absolutely in no way better than what's being sold, and charge the same price, because who's going to buy it? You know, it's not as good as the other. Why should I pay that price? But the nature of the marketplace is, well, if you make it a little cheaper, or you have this advantage to it, then I'll buy that because that's what my interest is, and then that creates a whole market. So the Torah was sensitive to this, and allowed for the prices to be not stable. There's the recognizing that it's not stable. When it is stable, there's one way. When it's not stable, then it's you know, as long as you identified it and you didn't overcharge, you didn't rather undermeasure or falsify what you're doing. So then it's a good sale. It's a good business, and there's all kinds of things about marketing techniques. It's a very robust area, very robust area.
I live in a fruit belt, Rabbi, and you know, there's certain farms, they have this knack when there's like over ripened fruit or something, they'll bury it underneath the container so that you know, you get all the good looking ones on top and everything else underneath is defective, and it's, you know. Yeah, you know, there's the mind of man that tries to cut corners for gain. It's treacherous, and
that might be the making your measures aren't, you know, your volume. You're hiding the not good stuff. So that might be
it's a misrepresentation of quality rather than quantity.
But you know, on the other hand, you could say, well, you know, you got to understand it's not all the same, and you should have inspected. So, but you know what the parameters are, not to cheat someone, and to cover these issues. Now, then you get into real life, and you get to some gray areas. Does it covered by this or not covered by this? And that's what makes life go round, and that's why the Torah has so many commentaries on it, because we've got these guidelines. And then recognizing all the ways that people work with them. So there's lots to discuss. This is only remember, there's a whole bunch of oral law or oral Torah that goes along with these things. And there's all kinds of discussions like that. But tonight we're out of time. So we're going to say goodnight. And
anybody in the Zoom meeting have any final comments before we close? Ronald, Robbie, Grace?
No, everything's good here. Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay, so remember that I should put a marker there when we finished out, but okay. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night, Tuesday.
Okay.
All right, so we will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m., 6 p.m. Pacific for more Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. Excellent session, Rabbi. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. So we're going to sign out for today, and we will be back tomorrow night, same time, continuing where we left off. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye for now.
Night, everyone.